Still on the war, an international relations expert says plans being made by President Donald Trump of the United States to take over Gaza are illegal and imperialist. He describes it as another form of colonialism in an interview with TVC News. Moya Thomas has more.
Reactions have continued to trail the announcements by President Donald Trump on the takeover of Gaza and the displacement of the over 2 million inhabitants of the Gaza Strip. The proposed plan has triggered outrage even among Palestinians. In a virtual interview, Haneen Baker, the Deputy Chief Executive Officer Media Center of An-Najah National Hospital in Palestine, says the plans will surely be resisted.
Palestinians reject any attempt of domination or occupation, whether by Trump or anyone else, especially that Gaza is neither for sale nor for taking over. It's an integral part of Palestinian land, which is people paid a heavy price to protect it. And also anyone and any move will be met with a great rejection and demonstration and anger from not only Gaza people, from all Palestinians, both inside and outside.
She says the resistance, no matter the cost to Palestinians, is necessary as a way to ensure their human rights are protected.
Resistance in its all forms, political, media, popular, it is the first line of defense against any plan that threatens human nations and any human nations in the world. So for Palestinians have never and will never accept having a reality imposed on them by force. And the real life and the fact and the word now, it stands as a proof for this since 1948. The Palestinian people will continue to protect and continue to struggle to achieve human rights and their right of them to live in their land.
In trying to understand what international protocol would allow President Trump to take over Gaza, Professor Sharif Ghali Ibrahim of the University of Abuja says there is none.
Clause or any article in any convention, charter, or international law provision that allows for an independent state to annex, acquire, or conquer another territory in the world. It is against the international law, it is illegal, and it is, so to say, primitive, if not even imperialistic. I can even by extension add that it is so colonial because it was under the hitherto era of the existence of empires such as Ottoman Empire, British Empire, Assyrian Empire, and the rest of them, who actually lived by conquest.
Professor Sharif also says the proposed plan of the takeover is international politics at play.
The ceasefire, which is not a permanent ceasefire, it is still a temporary ceasefire. So that particular concession, the look we're taking over Gaza, it did not just come like that. People think Donald Trump is just acquiring, trying to annex Gaza. No, it's not like that. That is being accompanied by the happenings, practical happenings of international politics.
While Haneen Baker believes the U.S. should rather offer Israel a space somewhere else instead of Palestine, Professor Sharif says diplomacy will go a long way in helping to resolve the challenge.
And instead of giving a plan for Palestinians to are indigenous people of this land and taking them and displace them in Jordan and Egypt and in other countries, take the Israelis, for example, to the U.S. Take the Israelis for the Europe who came from Europe years ago. Take them instead of Palestinians.
We are planning to see the outreach of diplomatic engagement. How states such as Saudi Arabia, China, Qatar, Turkey, and major players on the world stage, how they're actually going to continue to uphold their position.
Saudi Arabia and some other countries in the Middle East have begun plans as a countermeasure to the proposed takeover by President Donald Trump of the Gaza Strip. The plan includes a rebuilding of the land without displacing Palestinians. The World Bank and the United Nations says it may take over 10 years and a whopping $53.1 billion to rebuild Gaza. A detailed plan is expected to be raised at the Arab Summit scheduled to hold on the 4th of March 2025. Moyo Thomas, TVC News, Abuja.
For more on the Gaza peace deal, we have joining us now Global Affairs Analyst Ejike Okpa, and he joins us from Dallas, Texas. It's good to have you join us now, Mr. Ejike Okpa. So what do you make of these peace moves now, especially with the release of prisoners and hostages from both sides? That's Gaza, that's Palestine now, and the Israeli nation.
Well, thank you for having me. I think it's a sign of some progress, but how much progress is that, and how long is it going to be? Will it be sustainable? I mean, when you go back to this Palestinian-Israeli situation, it's not today. I mean, people have won Nobel Prize on it. People have suggested all kinds of things to do, but as soon as you do that, something else happens. And so, the sense of love thy neighbor, I mean, why can't they do that? I have something I always believe. I say Jesus was born there. That is where he was buried and he rose. How come they haven't had peace? How come something hasn't influenced them to understand, okay, we can live together. We don't have to have this bloodshed or constantly in a siege doing what they've done to themselves. And then that draws the rest of the world into it. So, I hope it doesn't happen. The suggestion made by President Trump about taking over, it's just a talk. There's no strategy. How are you going to do that? Are you going to physically move the people? You're going to send a military, something. So it's very complex. All I'm hoping and wishing is that the people in those areas look themselves. People are dying. Lives are wasted. And then you have world leaders that just make statements that maybe just, add more fuel to the fire. But love thy neighbor, draw the line. What do you want from each other? But again, I'm not Palestinian, I'm not Israeli, and I would never go to that part of the world. So if they want to slaughter themselves, it's their blood. And it's their blood. I'm just going to be an innocent bystander and say, oh my God, why are they doing that? But people in every country will have to learn how to live together. If they succumb to what they call the global superpower influence, it's their duty. Somebody comes into your home and divides you between you and your wife and your children. It's your fault. Why is your fault? Because he created a condition that enabled them to even think of doing it and then coming to do it. So individual responsibility to themselves, to their country and their family is very important in order to have a successful nation.
Well, even U.S. President Donald Trump has said he's not going to force his proposal on anyone, and adds that he's even surprised at the level of objection to his suggestion. But what role do you think nations like the U.S. should be playing?
The U.S. has played a role. If you go back to how the Israelis ended up in that part of town or part of the world, it was after the World War. Do you even know that the plan to settle the Jews was going to be on a line between Uganda and Libya until an American president said, no, move them over there. If not, they would have been in Africa. So since that time, 1948 to date, since Israel was established as a country, they haven't had peace. They haven't. You can go back to the biblical time and find all kinds of reasons why it shouldn't be or it should be. But we are in a modern time, 21st century, and people are still dying. And so, Trump said that, and he probably has moved on. But those people who want to oppose him and think he's crazy, he's not going to do it. He can't do it in the next 40 years, even if he was to be the president for that length of time. So again, it's the responsibility of those people that live there to figure out what it is they want and be able to live side by side. Otherwise, there's nothing U.S. can do. U.S. has given money on both sides. U.S. is giving Israel, support. U.S. giving Palestinian support. what have we gotten out of it except the same escalation of conflict and destruction of life and properties?
All right, so the next step now, at least for the hostages that have been released, is the subject of healing and recovery, and the Israeli Prime Minister have spoken about the need for that. What are your thoughts in this regard?
I mean, when the hostages are released, of course, you got to go through the medical assessment, checkup to make sure they're all, fine, because, there's, you have your physical freedom, but how about your mental ability? How about your mental health? Who knows what conditions they were held for the duration they were held, and so all of those things come back to haunt people. Remember, when the war ends, it's not just ending, people, there's a carryover effect, and that carryover effect is what makes people, PSTD and all these other things that happen, their generation, even though the individual released, they say, oh, I got my freedom, but the family members, they're feeling aggrieved, and they're going to turn around and want to do something. So, Israeli will take care of their own, the Palestinians will take care of their own. At the end of the day, they're all sitting on a keg of gunpowder. Who knows what else is going to cause that keg to explode?
So there is an Arab summit due in a few weeks' time from now. What are your thoughts, especially as even Arab leaders are also appearing to be in support of diplomacy to finally douse tensions between both nations and to ensure peace is actualized?
Well, the Arab people have always had their conferences and their conventions and their summit. But at the end of the day, they are not even a united group. You have the Saudi side, you have the Jordanian side, then you have, some other people in between. The Saudis are probably the richest in that region. But what are they doing? The Egyptians are there. So if they are unified, there are people that have some commonalities in ancestry and heritage. Why are they not speaking to themselves? But at the end of the day, no matter what the agreement is, tiny Israel, you look at Israel in reference of the size of the country and the population, and they have been able to hold these people at bay. So it's not quantity, it's the quality. Because if it was on a quantity versus quality, quantity versus quantity, i.e. population, Israeli would have been wiped. But Israel has been able to withstand them, and why they do it and how they do it, maybe technological advances or support from other things. So, the Arab people will now have to be sincere to themselves and, people that they share commonalities with, and said, hey, we have to have peace here. We have to put this thing away. Here's your land. How can we support you to rebuild so you can live? Countries have boundaries. If this is a boundary issue, then resolve the boundary issue. If it's mineral issue, okay, when that mineral is produced, how do you share it? But, this constant killing of people, kidnapping, holding people hostage, shouldn't be going on in the 21st century.